All right, let's go ahead and add in those glowing effects to our button. So the first thing we want to do is we want to add in a glowing ring. So we're going to come over to our shape tool and we're going to select our custom shapes, and we should already have it set to the ring. And we're going to go ahead and click, and we want to create this one a little bit smaller than this last circle we made. So we're going to make it 190 pixels. So 190 by 190. Go ahead and hit OK. And then we want to change the fill from this gradient to a solid color. And the color we want to choose is going to be a almost white. So about there should be good. And then we want to come up to our blues, somewhere between our aqua blues and our deep blues. We'll go ahead and hit OK. Great. Now let's go ahead and center that with our grab and move tool. Now that's looking a little bit too big for me, so I'm going to go ahead and use my transform tool to shrink that down. And I hold down shift to keep its proportions. So I just want to shrink it down just the tiniest bit. Hit OK. Then we can move that back into the center. Next, what we want to do is we want to add the play symbol to the center of our button. So I'm going to come over to my shape tool, and making sure I'm on my custom shapes. I'm going to come down into my custom shape panel, and I want to find the one that looks like a play button with rounded edges, which is this one right here. I'm going to go ahead and click and drag out my shape on my document like so, and holding down shift, it'll keep its proper proportions. And so I want it to be about that big. And it fills in with the same color that we had on this ring, because that was the last color we used. Next, I'm going to use my transform tool. And by coming out here to this corner area, I can click and rotate my triangle. Now by holding down shift, it'll rotate it to 45 and 90 degrees. So now that's a perfect 90-degree rotation. I'm going to move that down into the center like so. Now, what Photoshop thinks is a center might not look correct, so you can go ahead and use your own eyeballs to determine where you think the play button icon should be. So I'm going to hit enter. Then using the arrow keys on my keyboard, I'm just going to move that to where I think looks best. I think about there looks good. Perfect. Next, what we want to do is we want to add a glow to our play button icon. So what we're going to do is we're first going to merge our play button icon and our ring together. So we're going to select both of them in our layers panel. Then we're going to right click and we're going to come down to where it says merge shapes. So those keep their shape layer, but now they're one. Next, we're going to add an effect to that. And we want to do the outer glow effect, which is this bottom one. And then we can select any color we want. So right now it's set on an aqua blue. We want to change that to more of a middle blue. Go ahead and hit OK. Now I have my opacity set to 54%, but you see if you can drag that down and up, it changes the opacity of that glow. So I'm going to leave it at about 54%, and then leave the noise at 0% because you don't want any. And then down here you can change the speed, which is kind of changing the hardness and the solidness of your glow. But I'm going to leave that at 0%, and you can also change your size right here. And we're going to leave that at about 18 pixels. Great. Now let's go ahead and hit OK. Next, what we want to do is we want to add a glow to this back area in here where it's black. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a copy of this bottom black circle. And on this copy, what I want to do is I want to change the color to our glow color. So I'm going to come to my shape tool, and then I'm going to come to my fill color, and we want to select that same color. It should be right here in your recently used colors, so select the first one. Perfect. Next, what I want to do is I want to cut some shapes out of this circle. The reason why I want to do this is because I want some of these lights to look like they're actually rotating around our image. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off all of my top layers so I can see what's going on underneath here. Next, I want to start cutting out some shapes from this glow color. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over to my shape tool, and I'm going to select a rectangle, and starting up here, I'm going to come down like so, holding down my shift key to get a perfect square. So now I have my square. Now it appears like it's being cut off, and that's because it's going outside of the document, and that's okay. What we want to do is we want to use the grab and move tool to move that so it's right there in this quarter of our document. So now it's going right down the middle there and right down the middle there. Next, I'm going to make a copy of this layer, and I'm going to drag this new copy over to this side so that they're kitty corner from each other. So it lines up with both centers also. So now we have one square that's in this quarter of our document and one that's in this quarter of our document. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to merge these two shapes together. Then I'm going to select the circle underneath it. And what we want to do is we want to cut these squares out of our circle. So we're going to do like we did before and come up to layers. And then we're going to come down to combine shapes. And then we want to subtract from shape. Perfect. That's exactly what we want. Next, we can go ahead and turn all of our other layers back on so we can see how that looks. Now you'll notice here at the bottom, you can see just a tiny little edge from our glowing color. Now the way we can fix that is by shrinking down this shape. Now our black one is also seeping over the edge, you just can't really see it. But what I want to do is I want to select both of those layers, my black circle and my glowing circle layer. Then using the transform tool, I can go ahead and shrink those down. So I'm going to click up here in this corner and holding down Shift to keep my proportions and also holding down Alt to keep it in the center. I can go ahead and shrink that down just a little bit smaller than my top circle, like so. And you can see right here, you can see the edge of your selection, and that way you know you're on the inside of that circle. So now we can go ahead and hit Enter to solidify that. Perfect. Next, what I want to do is I want to add a glow to our glowing shapes. So I'm going to come down to FX, do outer glow, and we're just going to use the same settings we used before on our play button icon, except we want to add a little bit of a larger glow. So we're going to change the size and bring it up like so. And now that I see it, I think I also want to bring up the opacity like so. Perfect. We'll go ahead and hit OK. Now don't worry about this light that's seeping out over the edge of our button. The way you can fix that is by creating a clipping mask. So we're going to come up to Layer and then come down to Create Clipping Mask. And what that has done is it's clipped anything away that is not within the shape of the layer underneath our clipping mask. So this layer right here with the glowing images is a clipping mask to this black circle. Now we're done creating the basic parts of our button. In the next lecture, we're just going to add a little bit more detail and add a glossy coat over our play button icon, and then we can go ahead and start animating it. Thanks for watching this lecture, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.